Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel and this amazing video. I'm Aditya. In this video, I want to show you how we can refactor React components and make them reusable. So it's going to be pretty similar what we did before for the view form component. We will do the same thing for React, but there will be some interesting things in this as well. So without any further ado, let's begin. Right, to begin with, I have a simple Vite project. React Vite project. There I have an app component and a user form. Inside that user form, we have a simple form which just takes email, name, password, confirm password, like a sign up form kind of thing. And yeah, pretty simple. We have some states, and here if we try to see if it works, so I'm using fake filler extension. If I hit submit, let's see in the console, what do we see? And there we have it in console. We have the form submitted. So overall it works. So what's the problem in this? Only problem is that nothing is reusable. So instance, let's say if I want to create now let's consider that this is a sign up form. Let's say I want a sign in form, then I have to create same thing again. And also if you one thing notice, like here we have states, and in React, when any state change, the component re-renders. To show you, let me say console.log here something. I am rendered. Let's say something like this. And if we remove this from here, let's say we change this, you'll see I'm rendered like 3 times. So if we change something here, you'll see every time the state changes, the form is re-rendered, the component is re-rendered. So in this case, let's say we have a complex form, then we have to re-render this entire form again and again and again. So to avoid this, there is a very simple technique. But before that, let's try to break this form into different components. So what I'm going to do is, inside components we have this user form. We'll keep it as it is, but here I'm going to say form.tsx. Let's create a TypeScript component which is going to be a form component. So ts, so I'm just using React ES7 ES6 snippet for creating these components. So here I'm going to say tsrafc. So that's my form component. Now here, what I'm going to do is, this form will have its some default props. But before that, let's write our form component. So I'm going to say form like this. And here, let's put some props. So here first I'm going to say form props. So this props. So the form component will get props, which will be of type form props. Now this will have children, which is going to be React node. React node. Then we will have some other props, something like, let's say I want to pass class name, I want to pass on submit, and all those functions. So if you want to make this form component flexible, we can have other props. To pass other props, we could do something like this, x string, and that would be of type any. So here what I could do is, I could have something like this, let's say children, and then I will have ... others. Okay, so these others will correspond to this one over here. So I can pass anything. You can also make it strictly typed, or you could say you can restrict it very strictly, saying that okay, you cannot pass more than children, on submit, and class names. But if you want to keep a flexibility, then that's how you will have it here with rest props or other props. Also we will need class name. Let's say we have some default class name, and then they want to pass some additional class name. So this is going to be string, and I will keep this optional. So here we have class name. So it's not necessary to pass any class name, but just in case if we want to pass any extra class names. So here I will have class names, and I want to just follow this pattern here, which is these class names. So I'll just keep these class names for now. So let's copy them from here, paste them over here. And what we will do is, we will make them in a template syntax like this, so that we can pass our additional class names there. Class name, if there is any. And what we will do is, now if you don't pass any class name, then this is going to throw an error. So in that case, what we need to do is, we just need to make sure if this is not there, then in that case, if it's there, that's great. If it's not there, like this, actually, or if this is undefined, then just put blank. If it's defined, just put those class names. Close this. There you go. So we have these. So this tick will be outside of this. There you go. So we have our class names, and here we will have our other props, others, like this. And then here we have children like this. Perfect. So this our form component. Now you'll notice say form is declared, but its value is never read. That's fine. We will get to that. Now form component is ready. Now we will need form elements like input, label, and form group. So let's create the input element. So this is our form. Now the good thing about React is you can create components within same file. Next thing we need to do is let's go over here. Let's pick up the label first because that's pretty easy to do. This will be very similar to these form props. So what we could do is we could just simply extend these. So here, instead of saying like this, we could say const label, and this is gonna be a component. So this actually is pretty similar to this. So these props over here, it will have children, it will have class name, and it will have any other props. So we can put that over here. So we could say children, class name, others, and that would be very similar to form props. Okay, then here we will have our label component like this. So what I'm going to do is I won't have these classes. Thank you, Copilot. I will just have font semi-bold, then text maybe LG. We can, like, this is more like what classes you want to give here. So text gray of 800. So these are default classes. And then we have any label pass that will come over here. Great. So that's our label. Now what I'm going to do is I'll keep this purposely at the top of this form component. I'll tell you why. The reason being, I want to export these components with this form. For instance, I need to do something like this: form.label will be label. So that let's say we want to use this label component outside of this form.tsx, I will use it like this: form.label, something like this. Or I could also use simply like this, however I like. So for that reason, I want to just keep that flexibility. So here I'm going to say like this, and here I'm going to make it export const label. And then we have next our input. So let's go to input. So export const input. Now this gonna be same thing again, only the children won't be there, because in input we will just have like a self-closing tag. So what I'm gonna do is here I'm just gonna say like this. Here I will have class name, and then we will have others, and that will be input props. Now what's happening here is that these two things, they will be very repetitive, like they will be like always there. So what we will do is we'll create input props as an interface and convert this type form props into an interface, because you can extend an interface but you cannot extend type. So that's the main difference in TypeScript between type and interface. Interface can be extended, type cannot be. So what I'm going to do is here I'm going to say interface input props, which is going to be exactly these things over here. And also we can remove this one, we won't need this. And the good thing about this is we can also extend like something like this, and we can extend the actual HTML input interfaces like these. So in this case, I'm asking it, okay, my own properties or props, along with that, whatever default HTML input attributes are there, we can also extend that. So that's a very good, like that's a powerful feature of interface. Now what we will do is we won't have these over here because we want to extend this interface for our form props. So that becomes our clean version. So that's our input props going for input, and here we will have return, and then we will have input. I will just copy the class name that we have over here. So these class name, then this will be our template syntax. So I copied it including class name, sorry for that. So here like this, and then our additional class name, if we pass any. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is this is getting a bit out of bounds, so we can just put this on a new line like this. And here we will have our other props. So we can have placeholder, we can have type, we can have on input, anything we like. So that's great. That's become our input. Let's put it on our form as well. So form.input equal to input. Great. Next, form group. So export const form group. And here I'm just gonna copy this one, what I have, which is this one over here. So it will return a div with some children, and what's going to happen is it will have its additional class name if needed, something like this. So there you might want, let's say if you want to make it draggable, then you want to add some additional event listener. So for that reason we are passing this other, so that we have that flexibility to reuse it in a certain scope, or in actually in any scope we like. So that's our form component. Here I'm going to say form group equal to form group. Okay, and then export default form like this. Perfect. So that's our total components. So we have label, input, form group, and the form itself. Great. Now then we bring it over here inside the user form. So first thing we need to do is we just remove all of this and get our own components. So inside the form group, actually what we could do is also we can have input and label, so we don't need children at all. So in that case we just kind of like, we don't need to say, let's say something like form group, then label, input, etc like that. We can simply have it on the form group itself. So here I'm going to remove that, okay, like this. And here I'm going to have label. So the label component here, that's why we kept it at the top, because if we have React components defined like an arrow function like this, the sequence matter. If it was just function, like let's say function, label, and normal, then the sequence doesn't matter. So here we will have whatever label is passed. So label, then we will have input. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, so here I'm going to put some strict typing on this form group. So here I'm going to say interface form group, and that interface, it extends input props. So extends input props. Now here we will have placeholder, that's gonna be string. Now here the reason I'm giving these things like placeholder and everything, just because this is not a typical input, because if it was typical input, then like naturally we would say, okay, we will have placeholder here. But if it's form group, let's say if someone new working on this project, they don't really know in the tons of components, because we just have here 2-3 components, and if they don't know whether there is placeholder or there is like placeholder text, like what prop is actually expected. So for that reason we will have certain props which will be strictly typed. So here placeholder, which will be of type string. Then we have label. Now this label, it could be anything. It could be a component, it could be anything. So in that case I'm going to say react node, because let's assume that for some reason label here, the label here, let's say I want to pass text and icon. So in that case I want to keep this freedom that I cannot just pass string, I can pass anything. So that's label. Then we have, and this is actually needed, so it's not optional. Then we have type, this is needed as well, so this is going to be string. Then we have name property, this is going to be string. And then we will have the onInput function that will run to catch this input if we want. So this function, what I'm going to do is I'll keep it optional. I'll tell you why I'm keeping this optional. So that's our basic form group. So let's get this form group and let's put it over here. So form group, and then here we don't have children, we will have label here. And what do we need? Placeholder, type, name. So placeholder, type, name, on input, and that's it. So here we have label, then type here will be type, will be name, and what else? So we have name, type, label, placeholder, class name. Now here is it. Let's say we have input, like for this input we want to provide additional class names. For label we want to provide additional class names. Also for this we need to provide what is this label for. So here I'm going to say label, so we will also have for that label. So here we will have for, that's going to be string. and that will go on the label here. So HTML for, that will be for, and that will come from here. Let's remove this, for, like this. So this, and we are missing something here. Yep. So okay, let's say label for, otherwise it will might miss just for keyword. So label for, and we put it over here. So that's our label for input classes. So in case, let's say I want to modify my input for some reason, or add additional input classes, so that will go over here. So class name will be input classes if it's provided, otherwise it's gonna be empty string. So this goes again over here to input classes like this. Others we can put it as well, dot others. One thing to consider is others should always be at the end, because it's a spread operator prop, or it's a rest props. You cannot put it somewhere in the middle. It should be always at the end in the definition. So anything do we miss? I think label class, if we need label classes as well. So label classes, if we need them, string. So that will come over here. Label classes like this. So that will go over here again. Class name, label classes, if they are provided, otherwise it's going to be blank. So that's our form group. Now, next thing is, what if there is an error? So we want to handle that error message as well. So here I'm going to say error, or error message, whatever you prefer, which is going to be optional, because for some forms we may not need it, for most of the form we need it. So let's keep it optional for now. So error, that will go again here. So that will be something like this here. So that would be, if there is an error, so we'll just show that error like this. Perfect. So that's our form group. Now it all goes inside over here. So that's great. So let's bring these components. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to say here import form from form. I won't say it's a big component, but there's a good amount of loading needs to be done. And what if we want to lazy load this? So if you want to lazy load this, one thing is you can lazy load this form component, and in that case you also need to lazy load its subcomponents. Okay, so you can do it with React Suspense, or if you are using Next.js, then there is Next Dynamic. But in this case, what we could do is, our main intention is this user form component. So we can lazy load this user form component rather than lazy loading this form component itself. So inside this app.tsx, I can lazy load this user form rather than this form component. Because if you lazy load user form, you're just chunking or code splitting that particular component. So that should be fine. Now, next thing is replacing that with our components here. So we have form here. This class name will go because we already have class name on that. So we will just have this on submit function. Now here we will have form group. So first we will have form.form group, and here we will pass label. So label here will be name. Then we have, you could see like it's showing and throwing an error that we are missing certain properties, will be name. Then type will be, and what else? So on input function. Okay, I purposely won't pass on input function, because if you remember in the early stage of this video, or when we begin this video, I talked about states getting re-rendered. I'll tell you why won't we pass that. So form group label for, that's great. And what else do we need? I think that's pretty much it. So we can just simply remove this from here. And what we will do is, we'll simply copy these. Remember, this name property is important, because the next thing we are going to do to get the form elements or the data of the form, for that reason, we will need this name property. So let's remove all of these from here. And here we will have, this will be email. Name is name and type both will be email, and this also be email. This will be password. Now button. So we can also create a reusable component for button. So let's do that. So button.tsx. So export default function, which is just a button component. Now here you can pass it, making like it's a primary button or a secondary button. So you can create an intent, or you can just pass what we are doing here, like class names as and when needed, but we'll keep it like a reusable button. So here I will have return button, then I will have some intents here. So I'll define them outside. So let's import React first, but the button interface, so button props, there will be children. That's going to be React node. Class name if needed. Most probably it won't be needed, but let's see if it's just in case if it's needed. Then we will have intent. The intent will define whether the button is primary, secondary, or danger, or some other, like the success. So here, this is going to be either primary, secondary, danger, or success, or dark, or light, or warning. Okay. So that's our button props. We can also pass the others prop, but we will also need the onClick prop, which is going to be a function. So this is where we make that button like strict, so that we cannot have any props apart from these ones. So let's keep an example here for that, because we already saw one for others. So, or others prop. So then next thing is we need to create a map of this intent. So here I'm going to say const intent. So then we will have these props going over here. So we will have children first, and then we will have class name, intent, on click, and then we will have these as button props. Now these, we saying all the structure elements are unused. That's fine. We will just use it in a moment. So first we will have the children prop use here. Then we will have the class name. So there will be default classes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that default class with, and here I'm going to say whatever intent is passed from here, that will correspond for this one. So here I'm going to say intent like this. So that will come from here, and this will be corresponding to either primary, secondary, danger, success, or this. Now here it says explicitly has any type. So we'll make this more like this intent map, and then use this over here. So that's our intent map. So here we just need to add class for warning. So warning, and that's it. So that's great. So this is gone. And here we will have for onClick, whatever onClick function is passed. And what else? So we will need type as well. And also that class name here, additional class names if they are passed, otherwise it's going to be empty, and type for that button. So that will come over here. Type will be either it's going to be button, submit, reset. We will also need the disable, and that's where the other props are very useful. Like you can add additional props, or you can have it extend HTML button attributes. So in that case, you don't need to worry about these things. Extends, and there you go. So here I can pass type, I can pass all other button props. So what I'm going to do is here comes the button. This will be imported from the component that we got, which is this one over here. And now it is expecting some props. So we have the class name. We don't need class name here, but instead we will need the intent. That's going to be primary. And that's it. We have our button button component. So that's our form in general. Now, next thing is this form, whatever we got, is still incomplete because we need to manage these states. We need to find a way to manage these states. So what I'm going to do is simply, in case if I don't want these, like generally use states are very important when you want to do real-time validation. For instance, if I go over here, just refresh this page. Let's say I type some name and then I want to just validate instantly. So in that case, use states are very useful. But what if we don't want that? We just want to validate after it is submitted, or we just want it like after everything is put in the form. So in that case, we just don't need use states in that case. So we can just simply remove this from here. We can also remove these from here. We can also remove this from here, and simply what we will need is here will be const form data. Good old JavaScript. So form data e.current.target or e.current target. So this will refer to the form that is being submitted, which will be form. And when we proceed, provide these name properties, then we can pick them up with their key values or these keys. So here I'm going to say const form data values. So I'm going to say object dot from entries form data dot entries, and here I will have all my form data values. So I could simply replace this with form data values, and we can see our values. So in this way, we don't have to worry about this getting re-rendered. Now, one last thing, let's lazy load this component and import lazy from React, and we will also need the suspense component. So suspense from React as well. So what we will do is we will wrap this into suspense component like this, and lazy load this user form. So here I'm going to say const user form, we import our user form, this one over here, code splitting as well. So that's our user form, and here we will also need some props here to make this, whether we want to make it as a sign up form or normal form. So here I'm going to say sign up, so that's going to be Boolean. So here we can have sign up. So whether this form is a sign up form or whether this form is a sign in form. So if this is true, then in that case, we just need to show this and this. So here I'm going to say something like this, or so fragment will be nothing over there. So either anything works. You can either use double and, or you could use ternary operator. Need to do the same thing for confirm password. So let's go over here, confirm password, just copy this from here and put it over here like this. There you go. So that's our, and this here we can put, if this is sign up, then in that case we have sign up, otherwise we have sign in text in the button. Great. Now here we just put that sign up prop. So here we could say it is true. This is a sign up form. Awesome. So that's our form. Here we go. We have our form ready. So let's see if this works. Console, any errors? Nope. So let's try this with fake filler. There you go. Sign up, and there we have our form details without having any re-render. So we had our component refactored, so made into a reusable component. So we can reuse this for sign-in form, sign-up form. Also, we have form components now, so we have consistency in the design. Second, we manage this to make it into a performance efficient component, I would say, where we have this re-rendering happening just once, and this component is not rendered at all. In case we need the error message, then in that case we will need to use them as states. So in that case we need to have, so there will be some how can I say, some amount of re-rendering happening if we have error messages, which is fine, but at least it will happen when you submit it. So it will be like very minimum compared to every time you type it re-renders. That's all in this video. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you feel this video is worth sharing with your network, please do share with your network. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to our channel. So see you in the next video. Till the next time, goodbye.